look at that. It's season 2 of Groove Diner After Dark. I can't believe that after 933 years, we actually are back live. Didn't 2021 feel like it was more than 900 years long? Oh my gosh, it was an incredible year though. Thank you so much to everyone that tuned in last year. We had over 10,000 viewers last year, which was simply astonishing to us all at the Groove Diner After Dark, in the Groove Diner After Dark world. You guys made this show so much fun last year. We had a blast, and we're really, really looking forward to season 2. Our guests last year were tremendous, and this year we're going to take it up even further, more and more levels. We've got new studio, as you see. It's been renovated completely. New sound, new everything. We even have a new format this year. We did some in-person interviews. We took the time to make sure we were taking care of all things COVID so that we could be in person and talk with each other and have some one-on-one interaction this year that we couldn't do last year via Zoom type interviews, as you saw. But it was really, really wonderful. This year, Nate Morton's our first guest. It's hard to imagine that Nate Morton's our first guest because you know him from The Voice, but I knew him first from Rockstar NXS and Rockstar Supernova. We'll talk a little more about Nate here in just a few minutes, but his drumming is something that I love, and the fact that I get to call him friend and the fact that he is such a great human being makes this even more wonderful. Really looking forward to sharing that interview with you. So for tonight, stick around. Our conversation, mine and Nate's, was so good that we actually got 2 episodes out of it. There was just so much information packed in that we could not take it down to 1 episode. So here we go with episode 1. We'll be right back after this. This episode of Groove Diner After Dark is brought to you by Groove Diner After Dark, the store. That's right, starting with tonight's episode, you can tell the world of your love for Groove Diner After Dark by owning official Groove Diner After Dark merchandise. Coffee mugs, t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, a pint glass, stickers, and much more can be yours today. Simply go to GrooveDinerAfterDark.com or click the link in this video description and get your gear today. Thank you for your support. Oh yeah, see, it's real. It's not just something that exists in the middle of the air. They're real. Do us a favor. Stop by the store, pick up some gear, and also, if you don't mind, give us a like and a subscribe. We have a brand new YouTube channel. It's less than 24 hours old, so it's not even called Groove Diner After Dark yet. But Dan's going to put a link up to that in the comments section here in just a minute so that you can find the show. You can find the replays later after tonight's live broadcast is over as well. It's really important to us, and we're so grateful for that. As for our first guest, Nate Morton, like I said, you know him from The Voice, Rockstar NXS, Rockstar Supernova, but did you know that he also played with Vanessa Carlton and Natalie Cole, and he played at the Grammys with Madonna? This guy's had a heck of a career. He has done kind of everything, big and small, and he's just such a great guy. I hope you enjoy this interview that we had together, and here we go.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
That was better. Nate, thank you for having us at your place, man.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for making the trek.
I freaking love this finish on this kit. It's beautiful. It's my favorite.
I enjoy it very much.
It's gorgeous. I love it. Nate Morton, obviously, and he is known best for his role on The Voice. But I first became aware of you with Rockstar Inks. And NXS.
Yes.
And then Rockstar Supernova.
Right.
Yeah. So that was the first time I heard you or heard of you. And I remember seeing the show and going, who is that guy? And I heard it, and I seriously started digging to try to figure out who you were, because your playing just knocked me cold on that show.
Okay, you flatter me. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's true, because the fact is that these house bands, you guys are all so good on these shows. Every one of these house bands, American Idol, etc., every player is so good, and you stood out to me,
Wow.
in a way that frankly, I wasn't expecting it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, and with regard to that show, it was interesting because if you were to be flipping through channels and come across that show, it just looked like a rock concert.
Totally.
Right? It wasn't like, oh, here's the artist and like, who are those guys in silhouette in the background?
Yeah.
Whatever. It was literally the band on stage, artist in front, running back and forth, rocking out with the various musicians in the band. So yeah, that was a really fun show to be involved with.
How was it? What was it like for you working with the members of NXS in that sort of way, where you were actually having to replace someone that was so near and dear to them? What was that like for you to have to deal with I'm sure there was an emotional component to that.
The beauty of that show was that everyone was coming from a very sincere place of gratitude, if you will.
Nice.
So in other words, we have a certain amount of gratitude towards NXS, because it's like, I'm so thrilled that you want to be involved in this production, and even further more flattered and honored that I'm involved in the production. And then they're coming to it from a place of, we sincerely want to find the guy or girl to front this rock outfit and to get us out there and doing this again. So there was a real sincerity, and there's also a certain, because that was the first season of that show, there's a certain newness and a certain just eyes wide open, like, wow, a genuine appreciation for what's going on. So that was a really beautiful show. Cool. And there were a lot of really beautiful moments within it, a lot of really outstanding performances.
Yeah, I agree completely.
That I still reference to this day.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. Supernova, of course, the next season was a little different because Tommy Lee was involved in that, right?
Right.
And so did you have to try to lay down things in a Tommy Lee sort of way? Or were you just playing Nate and
No, I've always only just sort of, I've never, in that scenario, I never really was trying to do things in a Tommy Lee sort of way.
Yeah.
That said, I mean, he is an influence. I mean, he's an influence, if not only for playing, also for the like over-the-top rigs that he would have had that I would have been seeing in videos and going like, oh my gosh, where's that rotating, spinning, crazy square thing? Can you bring it to my garage?
Please, right here where we're sitting now. We can use that right here.
So that was a lot of fun, And, I mean, he's a guy that I grew up watching in videos on MTV at the dawn of music television, right? So it was exciting to be involved with him.
Yeah.
And it was exciting to just the entire experience. It was a really significant and meaningful period and television show. And again, a lot of great performances, a lot of cool relationships. I still talk to many of the contestants from that show and stay in touch. So it's been, it was really great.
Would you say that was as important to building your career as pretty much anything else you've done? For instance, Berkeley. I know you went to Berkeley. Would you equate those two things? How would you equate those things?
So you're touching on an interesting topic, which is this. Historically, my answer, what's the most important thing? What's the biggest thing you ever did? What's the best decision you ever made? And I would always say the second best decision I ever made was moving to Los Angeles.
Yeah, okay.
And the first most important decision I ever made was going to Berkeley. I have since semi-revised that in the sense that one without the other would not have gained the same amount of result.
Yeah,
right?
You're from North Carolina?
No, I was born in Nashville, Tennessee. Okay. And then I bounced around up and down the East Coast. Okay. And I found myself in 1991 at Berklee College of Music.
Fair enough, okay.
So now I say that attending Berklee College of Music and moving to Los Angeles are in a first place tie for the most important thing that I ever did. I get messages periodically, or I get folks who, reach out to me on Instagram, for example, and say, I'm the best drummer in Topeka, Kansas.
Sure.
How do I take my playing to the next level?
Sure.
How do I get on the next marquee position?
Yep.
And I kind of say the short answer is get out of Topeka, Kansas. And I don't say that with any disrespect to Topeka, Kansas. I just mean that when I was in Boston, watching guys on TV playing with a new artist on The Tonight Show, for example, I would realize, like, okay, that guy's on that gig because that guy or that girl lives where that gig is.
You got to be present to win.
You got to be present.
Yeah.
You got to be present, got to be in it to win it, as they say. So that was why I was sort of drawn to moving here.
Was there a moment when you said, you know what, I am good enough to go pro, but if I'm going to go pro, I've got to get out of here? Was there a specific moment, or was it just that you were, in fact, watching it on TV and said, this is the thing I've got to do?
When I was in Boston, there was a time period when I was driving around looking at houses.
Yeah.
Because I was very fortunate. I was very fortunate to have gotten out of college, and I was playing in a calypso cover band, and I was playing in a rock cover band, and I was playing 3 mornings a week on jazz brunches on a harbor cruise, and I was doing the odd demo for bands, and I was very busy. I was fortunate, very fortunate to be busy, and in my early 20s, sort of making a living doing that. I had a couple of standing gigs that were held in fairly reasonably high regard.
Sure.
And I'm driving around looking at houses and just thinking to myself, well, that would be neat. I could set up my drums and play and make noise in the house. And then it just dawned on me that I felt like maybe I didn't invest the time and energy to practice as long as I had and to work as long as I had to sign off on being the most in-demand cover band drummer in Boston.
Yeah.
And that is with all due respect,
of course,
to Boston and cover bands, and I'm in a cover band.
Absolutely.
All right?
Yeah.
But that was kind of the moment for me. That was the moment. And I was asked at times, like, weren't you afraid to move to LA? Weren't you scared to move to LA? And my response is kind of like, I was more scared to stay in Boston.
Sure.
At that time. And, I didn't know enough to know better.
Right.
I'm going to go. I'm going to pack up the stuff and pack it in the car and move to LA.
Yeah.
And I just felt like at the end of the day, I don't want to come to the end of this very short amount of time that we have on the planet with any sort of regrets.
Yeah.
Oh man, what if I had tried this? Or what if I had tried that? Yeah. So that was kind of the impetus behind it. The fact that I realized I'm not quite ready to settle down in Boston and play that scene for the rest of my life.
Right.
And I just felt like there was more to accomplish.
It's funny because at one point I was the best drummer in Monticello, Mississippi.
Right.
And when by way of Nashville and Athens, Georgia, I ended up making the move out here to LA.
Right.
And to this day, I still get questions about the weren't you afraid? And for me, I guess people back home, again, with all due respect to everyone back there, but people think of this place as Babylon or something,
Sure.
So how can you possibly? Well, the answer is, how could I possibly not?
Right.
There was simply no other choice. It's you know what it is. It's Nashville, it's New York, it's LA. Those are basically your 3 real choices.
And I didn't want to play at the time 85% country, with all due respect to country.
Again, yeah.
And I also didn't want to freeze my butt off in New York City.
Going spang-a-lang and throwing things into cabs.
Correct.
Yeah.
And and literally my thought process was, well, if I'm going to be broke and suffer from my art, it might as well be where it's 85 degrees
Broke
and sunny
with a
every
beach,
day.
baby. Yeah.
That was literally it, And I feel like I need to say at this point too, when I teach, I tell my students, or I tell the cats that I'm working with, the information that I share with you is the information from my own experience. And how much of that is valuable to you is up to you.
Absolutely.
Right? So I'm not saying to everyone in the world, move to LA.
Of course.
Because there are obviously situations where that just doesn't make sense for people or, can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm just speaking from a point of view of like, this is what I did.
But I'm going to bet that you're also not saying don't move to LA.
No, I am actually saying don't move to LA because there's only a certain amount of gigs, and I want to continue
As
working.
many as I can get.
No.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah,
of
right.
course. Yeah.
That's really interesting to me because, again, coming from such a small town,
Right.
the outlook on life sometimes can be a little smaller. So one of the reasons, you know that I do drum camps in the summer. So every year when I do the camps, one of the big reasons I do it is to say, look, there's a whole world out here.
Right.
If you guys want to take the risk, it's worth taking.
Right.
You might fall flat, but guess what? You might actually be successful.
Well, and not only that, but even if you do fall flat, it won't. You won't have the regret of not trying.
Exactly.
That's kind of the thing. I tell students who say, well, should I try to do it or should I whatever?
Yeah.
And my thing is kind of like, you know what? Yeah, sure, why not?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you don't want to be headed towards the exit with any regret for anything that you didn't attempt.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
That's absolutely true. Do you ever shake hands with a pro basketball player?
Yes, actually, I have.
It's like their hands are this big.
Yes.
Right? And
yes.
they're so soft.
I shook hands with man, I'm gonna fail on the name right now. It's not Antoine Carr. He was the coach for Celtics. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
I shook hands with him.
Yeah.
And literally, when we shook hands, my hand disappeared inside his hand. Like he took my like this. I was like,
I know.
What the heck?
I have a great Shaq story. I was the drum set drummer for the basketball team at Alabama when I was in school there. The pep band, and we were playing LSU at the time that Shaq was in school at LSU. And I had all my hardware in a duffel bag, and I'm walking along underneath the bowels of the Coliseum, just struggling, And all of a sudden, the hardware bag goes,
right.
And I look up, and Shaq's looking down at me, grinning. He just got that big Shaq grin, and he took the stuff up and set it up on the stage.
Oh, yeah, that's
for
a big
me.
boy. That's a
huge.
big man right there.
He is huge.
That's a big man right there. I think it was
Holy
ML
God.
Carr. ML Carr.
All right, yeah,
I shook hands with ML Carr.
yeah.
And my hand just disappeared.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I totally believe it. Robert Ory was there at the same time I was there too. So I actually
Big shot Bob.
totally. And I ended up playing pickup games with those guys because they let me play pickup games with them because I was the drummer guy and I'm relatively tall, and they let me play. And I had this little backup thing where I could put my butt on you and push back, take a step.
Got some moves. Oh, look at you.
One little shot. And I remember one day Robert Ory made me eat that ball and I never tried it again.
Well, I mean, how tall are you?
6'2".
Right, so he's still got you by like
6 inches.
over. Yeah, I was gonna say like half a foot.
Yeah, yeah.
And he has like the wingspan
Totally.
of a pterodactyl.
Oh my gosh, it was crazy, man. Oh,
Yeah, those guys are
wow.
freaks.
Totally.
Those guys are on a basketball court. It's like like anywhere but a basketball court. It's like you're like kind of a freak.
Yes. I remember we were at the Lakers game, and I can't remember who it was. The point guard was running around, and he looked so small comparatively, and my wife's like, he's so tiny. I'm like, he's an inch taller than me, babe.
Right. Right. I did it. I was at a UCLA game once, and I can never remember the kid's name, but he went on to have an NBA career for like maybe 10, 12 years. And now I think he's doing commentating, but he was on UCLA's team at the time. And I had gone to the concession stand and I was coming back with popcorn or whatever.
Sure.
And I'm walking along the baseline and he going for a ball, like bumped into me. And when he got up, he was about 6'10".
Right.
And when he got up, he said, oh, sorry, sir. And then ran back on the court. I was like, oh my God. Like, cause to me, I'm teeny tiny and he's like this ginormous guy. But ultimately, he was probably 19 years old at the time,
right, yeah.
I'm in my 40s.
All right, so back to our conversation. We were talking about moving to LA and everything. The question I have for you is this. Do you think it's still possible for people to make a living outside of the big three? Is it even possible? Maybe Atlanta, Miami, but what about Topeka, Kansas? Can people still do that? Or do you, if you want to have a music career, is it imperative you must go?
I think that Atlanta was on the map when I was graduating school.
Yeah, sure.
Because that was the thing. Because at the time, several groups had come out of Atlanta.
They had, yeah.
And I think that it kind of depends on what your idea of making a living is.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So if your idea of making a living is being a session guy who does, sessions and then also does lots of big tours and so on, it's possible that's not happening out of Topeka, Kansas.
No.
However, if you're a guy or girl whose idea of success is being the drummer in a particular band, I feel like to an extent that can happen anywhere.
Yeah.
Because the internet has made the whole world a lot smaller.
Has it made it better though? Now, I ask that question because with it being smaller, it seems to me that the barrier for entry is lower. So,
the upside is everybody can put everything out there. The downside is everybody can put everything out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a double-edged sword.
It is.
There are pluses and minuses. There are certainly, I would assume anyway, I can't name one at the moment, but I'm certain that there are players who have found their way to gigs via the internet who might have otherwise done so. I would imagine there are probably bands that have found their way to contracts via the internet who mightn't have otherwise done so.
But probably not as many as we expect.
You think?
I'm just guessing, but I would think probably not. I don't know.
I don't know either. I do think to an extent, though, there are certainly players out there who have found their ways to gigs.
Yeah, for
there
sure.
are players who have found their
way. My friend Dorico
on
Watson. Do you know Dorico? Okay, so
do I know Dorico?
Fair enough. So Dorico, I don't want that story. Dorico was in Muskegon, Michigan, where he's from, right? And he was seen by Victor Wooten at the high school or college where he was playing, and that's how he got that gig. So
I mean, I would say that whether or not you have to move to one of the quote unquote music meccas, kind of depends on the career path that you're chasing. At the end of the day, the majority of the, for example, studios are still New York, Nashville, LA.
Yeah.
The majority of the national tours are still based out of New York, Nashville, LA. So does the possibility exist to find your way onto one of those into one of those situations from Duluth? Yes, the internet makes it possible, but even beyond the internet and someone coming across what you do there, there's a certain importance or sort of validity or sort of gravity to being at the Starbucks on, Lankershim and Ventura, where you might bump into that
Nate Morton,
tour manager, that musician, etc. So while the pendulum may have swung somewhat away from it, I do still think that there's a lot of validity and a lot of importance to being where the gigs are.
COVID, how did that impact? Let's start with The Voice, because we really haven't talked about your big gig, which is, of course, The Voice. How did that impact the shooting schedule? What did it actually do to you guys to have to deal with COVID in the sense of shooting a show?
If there was such a thing as sort of COVID good luck, it just so happened that things shut down in March 2020 in the middle of what was already a scheduled break for us.
Oh, okay.
We were already in the middle of a semi-hiatus, if you will.
Right.
And that gave us the lead time to go, oh, okay, let's scramble.
Yeah.
How do we still make this happen? So as a result, cats in our department, music department, production department, all of it, got the wheels spinning and figured out a way to make it happen remotely.
No kidding.
Much of it, involved me recording the drums in here.
Right here.
On this very drum set.
Yeah.
So that was one of the big things that kind of went into why we were able to hit that as a speed bump, as opposed to, the Grand Canyon that we fell into.
Sure.
We were fortunate to not suffer any tremendous disruption.
That's pretty amazing.
It's extremely amazing.
Yeah.
From that point when we came back, eventually we worked our way through the end of that season, which was, if memory serves, season 18. And then season 19, there was enough lag time between that the powers that be were able to figure out a way like, I think we can have people back in a room again.
Right.
And things changed and regulations changed and all of it, to the point where we were actually able to be in the same room again, surrounded by plexi. It looked like the set of Dexter.
Yeah, right.
Like everyone is surrounded, everyone in their individual stations. Like we're accustomed, you and I, buddy, we're accustomed to being behind plexi. Like drums are frequently behind plexi, but keyboards behind plexi, guitar behind plexi, lead vocalist behind plexi.
Yeah.
And we did that and made our way through that season. And as things gradually loosened, we were able to sort of like, oh, maybe we can have a small handful of people in the audience. Right. So, I mean, I've always described my gig as a unicorn. It's like so rare and so, it doesn't come around a lot.
Right.
It doesn't come around often. And the way that we negotiated our way through all of the COVID situation makes it even all the more so. There are so many musicians that I know whose entire situations came to a screeching, grinding halt, and are only now, some of them, getting back to like, hey, remember we were going to do those shows 2 years ago?
Yeah, right.
Now they're booked for 3 months out. And I consider myself so fortunate, and I really count my lucky stars that the show managed to negotiate a way through that very intense and serious obstacle course.
Sure. What about outside of music? How has COVID impacted your life?
Well, this is not exactly outside of my gig.
Mm-hmm.
It's involved with my gig. However, it is somewhat outside of music. But we've had certain people that we lost to COVID.
Sure.
We had a bass tech on the show named Maddie, who at 51 years old was no longer with us anymore.
Right.
So it's affected me in that regard. You know, I've been, again, very fortunate to have not been touched extremely close
Right.
by loss, with exception of Maddie, which was unfortunate. And it's interestingly, outside of music, it's been more a thing with my kids in schools.
Sure, I can see that.
It's been more a thing with my kids in schools.
Yeah.
And having to sort of negotiate the ever-changing landscape of what that is. Oh, we're doing remote learning.
Right. Yeah.
That was gnarly.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because one of the things that I'm asked a lot, and I don't have a kids at home, but one of the things that comes up in conversation with drummers is so many drummers, super drummers, don't have families. How do you balance being a guy that plays at the level you do with having a family life, and you've got 6 kids?
Not well. It is an eternally moving target.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
It is an always moving target.
Yeah.
So I've told this story many times, but I think it bears retelling. When I first started making like treks out of Boston, I was playing with Dale Bozio in Missing Persons.
Sure.
And I found myself out here on the West Coast, and I was playing gigs. And I've got a very, very dear friend named Tony DiAugustine, who I love.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, Tony was doing different tours and playing with Ben Vereen and doing Jesus Christ Superstar.
Nice.
And just all this stuff. Like Tony is like, and
Right.
he's like awesome. And he's like everything I wish I could be if I had any discipline.
Right.
He's like all like super fit, and like eats all healthy and like all of it. And I love him. So I'm out here playing with Dale Bozio.
Yeah.
And I say to Tony at one point, I visit with him and we hang out. I say, Tony, what's the hardest thing about being a professional musician?
Yeah.
And I'm at the time in my mid-late 20s.
Right.
And I'm looking for like reading ability, drums that sound good.
Yeah, sure.
Chops, whatever. Tony says, finding a balance.
Wow.
And I go, finding a balance? Like, what's that mean? You know? And I said, a balance between what?
Yeah.
And he said, even more befuddling at the time to me, a balance between everything.
Wow.
And I walked away from that going like, thanks a
help.
lot.
Yeah,
like,
right.
what's that mean? Like, what am I going to do with that? Every subsequent year after that, I realized more and more what that means.
Sure.
It's literally a balance between everything. It's a balance between playing gigs you love versus gigs that pay more money.
Sure.
It's a balance between being on tour and earning a living versus having any amount of time to spend any of the money that you're making on tour and enjoy that.
Right.
Being on tour and supporting your family versus seeing your family. There's so many different things that day to day we have to balance as people in general, but particularly as musicians. So I definitely have a scale in my head, right? So on one side of it, it's like I taught a couple of lessons today. I tracked a song for a cat today. The Voice season, whatever, we shot that thing. Right. Awesome. Versus I got to watch a movie on the couch with my wife tonight.
Right.
I took my 9-year-old to the tennis court.
Yeah.
I took my 6-year-old to the swimming pool.
Right.
So there is definitely an ongoing balance. Now, I benefit tremendously from the fact that I have an in-town gig.
Sure.
So even if it's only for a brief moment in the morning before they go off to school, or even if it's only for a brief moment at night when I get to see them before they go to bed, I do get to see the wife, the kids each day. I do get to be in my house each day.
Right.
So that helps me in terms of that balance. And it definitely is something that I think about every day.
I can imagine.
It is something that goes on in my mind every day.
He really laid some serious wisdom on you.
He really did.
I mean, wow.
He really did. He really did. And
how fast you play your paradiddles pales in comparison to Balance of Life.
Sure. Pales in comparison to seeing your 9-year-old daughter hit a cool cross-court backhand.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So on a good day, I get a little bit of all that in.
Yeah, sure.
And when things go out of balance, I feel it and I sense it.
Mm-hmm.
So coming up on the finale of the show, things are very out of balance.
I would imagine.
Things are very it's all show.
Yeah.
I'm lucky if I see I saw my 9-year-old Isabel at one point, and it literally felt like it had been like a week and a half since I saw her.
Right.
You know, even though I'm home.
Yeah, sure.
Even though I'm home, you know? So it is definitely something to be very cognizant of, and it is definitely something to take very seriously and consider and give a great amount of weight and profundity to.
When you're really working seriously on the voice, do you start at 8 in the morning and go all day? What's it actually like? You know, run down a day for me when you've got something.
Well, you mentioned Rockstar earlier.
Yeah.
So Rockstar, there was a point in the production of that show during the week when we had to have the show done and shot by 2 in the afternoon so that the editors could do what they needed to do so that it could air on time on the East Coast at, 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. East Coast time. So on those days, we would have like, I'm getting flashbacks just thinking about it. We would literally have like 4:45 a.m.
Oh, man.
Like call times on stage. 4:45 a.m. It's still dark outside.
I know, right?
And we're playing rock music. And it's supposed to look like it's nighttime, but we're in a rock club. And it's actually like 6 in the morning. Right? So we had some of those. So thank goodness.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Even though we tend to go later into our evenings, we don't have quite such inhumane call times on The Voice typically. Every now and then we do dip into the single digits. We dip into the 9 o'clock, call times. But most of our call times are fairly humane.
I remember I did Dick Clark's New Year's Eve once, and we shot like in September for the New Year's Eve show, and it just didn't work. You know
Crazy.
what? I'm supposed to, and all these people are celebrating the new year. The crowd, no, it
Right.
just didn't work. Totally bizarre, man.
TV world.
Totally.
TV world.
Yeah.
So in regard to The Voice, our most grueling schedule occurs in the 6-week run up to the finale. And when we're doing that, it's a 7-day-a-week gig. Our call times vary, but for example, around Thanksgiving, there are a couple of days where we have to kind of do what for lack of a better term, sort of double days.
Sure.
So we get Thanksgiving Day off, but because it's a 7-day week and we would normally have been working on that day, what that means is that the following Friday we have twice as much work.
Right.
So that day might look pretty gnarly.
Yeah,
that might be like a 9 a.m. start, 2 a.m. wrap. We've had wraps on those days where we finish as late as 4.
Right.
But typically we're looking at an 8 to 12 hour day that starts somewhere between 9 a.m. and 11.
Got it. Okay. That's workable.
Yeah, it's workable.
Yeah.
It's workable.
Yeah.
And when it's just the band, it's much quicker.
I would think, yeah.
But when you involve the whole machine and the whole production, then days can get a little longer.
Do you still practice?
Buddy, the last time I sat down on my drums strictly for myself was quite a while ago.
I would think.
That said, I have a lot of time available in the spring coming up. And so I'm going to make it a point to put practicing on there. I'm going to get back to those. I'm going to do my very, very best to find the eye of the tiger again and sort of dig through some of the things that I didn't make my way all the way through when I was in college.
Sure.
And sort of find some of those things that I kind of haphazardly was able to get through and try to tighten them up.
New breed.
I even... Don't put me on the spot like that.
I don't know how many times I started and stopped New Breed in college. And stuff, but
and that's a tough book.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, that's like
when you do it right. It's tough.
That's like Homer's The Odyssey.
Totally, without a doubt.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like War and Peace.
It totally is. Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, man.
But yes, you are correct. I mean, I got a stack of books over there that I haven't cracked since I was in college.
Yeah, right.
And I do want to take the opportunity to revisit those things.
Sure. I'm finally doing something I always wanted to do. I'm taking lessons with a guy who wrote a book.
Okay.
David Stanek. Do you know David?
I don't think I know David.
Okay, he wrote a book called Mastering the Tables of Time, and I'm studying with him in his own book.
That's pretty cool.
And it's something I've always wanted to do. You know, if I could have studied with Gary Chester with his own book,
Well,
that would have been astounding, right? So,
well, see, and I briefly had that experience when I finished Berkeley, and I was, you know, a couple
you're
more
going to say
years
Alan
down
Dawson,
the road.
aren't you?
I'm not going to say Alan Dawson.
Okay.
All that would have been quite
amazing.
sweet.
Yeah.
Gary Chafee.
Oh, come on.
Gary Chafee. And at the time, you had to audition
I bet.
to even have him accept you as a student.
Sure.
It reminds me of the scenes, and by the way, I'm a big Tarantino fan. So it reminds me of the scenes with Pai Mei when she's getting dropped off to study martial arts.
In
with
Kill
him.
Bill, right?
And Kill Bill,
right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And he basically puts her through the ringer.
Yeah.
Like, are you worthy of studying with me? It was kind of like that with Gary Chafee. Like,
No kidding.
I'm carrying like water buckets
Right,
up flights of
right.
stairs on my shoulders to prove my worth to study with him. But it was amazing. That said, getting back to the idea of practicing, I have stacks of cassette tapes from lessons that I took with him
There you go.
that I kind of understood then.
Yeah.
I should put them on now and revisit.
Seriously. Yeah.
You know? So yeah, it's something that I look forward to practicing again. And additionally, there's so many cool drummers out there now playing so much cool stuff.
Right. Oh my gosh.
And I go, wait, what was that?
Oh man.
You know, so there's a lot. There's a lot.
When you see those guys that are just killing it,
Yes.
does it make you want to burn your drums or go home and practice? Because I kind of walk both sides of that. Sometimes I just want to go, nope, I'm done now. And sometimes it makes me sit down and dig in. And I don't know. How do you feel about that?
If I'm honest, no one makes me want to burn my drums.
Right.
And here's why. I have a fairly realistic self-assessment of what I do.
Mm-hmm.
In this sense, I think I have a good idea what I'm reasonably okay at doing.
Yeah.
I think I know where I shouldn't go because that's not my.
That's such a huge
That's
thing.
not my lane. So, for example,
Yeah.
I'm able to watch JD Beck
Mhm.
and go, "You're friggin' amazing.
Yep.
That's what you're doing is incredible." But I also don't necessarily want to burn my drums over it because I realize that what he does has a very specific context
Right.
in what he's doing and has less practical applications in when I'm, playing Brown Eyed Girl.
Of course. Right. Right.
So in the case of JD Beck and others like that, I just let it wash over me.
Yeah,
I just
okay.
go, wow, you're outstanding. You're stupendous.
Yeah.
And I just let it go over me. Other players,
Gospel chops guys.
sure, other players,
Those guys.
they're crazy.
Yeah.
They're crazy. They're cartoon drummers.
Absolutely.
But every now and then, and you and I were talking about this earlier off camera, every now and then, I do see one little thing. And I'm like, I think I might be able to learn that one little thing.
Right.
And if I can incorporate that one little thing, then when I'm playing a hip hop or a R&B or a gospel tune on the show, and I can do that one little thing, it's like, oh, okay,
Right.
that guy actually has heard this music before.
Right.
I'm never going to convince anyone that I'm a gospel drummer. That's not going to happen.
Right.
But what I'm really going for is the ability to show a certain respect, if you will.
Yeah.
Because it takes a certain respect to spend the time to study something.
Without a doubt.
For you to actually study something and go like, oh, this is Mary J. Blige. Oh, the drummer is Gerald Hayward.
Right.
Let me actually find out what he played live.
Yeah, sure. Live's so different from the recording.
And dive into that.
Yeah, man.
And then try to incorporate that when I play it on the show. That's important to me.
Sure.
And that's not just gospel guys. That's country guys.
Absolutely.
That's whatever it is. Fill in the blank. That's blues guys.
Yeah.
That's anything.
I just learned about the whole Jay Dilla thing. I've missed that.
Sure. I can't do that on the show.
I'm just
I can't
learning
do
it
that.
now.
There's
It's like,
there's a that world
Oh
where,
my gosh, man.
where half the groove is swinging and half the groove is straight.
yeah,
and-
right. They're really dividing everything in fives. Okay, so all right, I can count to five, no problem. But
and that's why, it is interesting. It's again getting back to balance.
yeah,
I could practice so much stuff,
Mhm.
but so to quote again, my friend Tony DeAugustine,
yes,
I said to Tony at one point, I showed him something of some drummer, and I said, I have no idea what's going on here. Please help.
right.
And Tony basically broke it down. It's this, it's 7 and it's 5 and it's this and it's this, these odd groupings and these things. And he's sending me videos of him. He lives on the East Coast, right? So he's sending me videos literally of him in his garage, and you can see the breath coming out, the steam, the breath coming out. And he's in a coat in his garage playing. And he sends me things, he's broken them down. And at the end of the video, he goes, yeah, so, that's what it was. So, try that on the gig. You'll get fired, but you'll sound like Vinny.
You're like, thanks. I appreciate
you'll
that.
get fired, but hey, you'll sound like Vinny.
I love it,
These
man.
odd groupings.
Yeah, right.
So that's kind of the thing, It's like I have to have a balance. I have to have a balance. Sure. It's like, could I sit in here and could I learn lots of that stuff?
Right.
Yes. But at the same time, I also want to spend time working on things that are the most practical and have the most practical application in the gig that I'm doing.
Like I said, that was an epic conversation. 2 episodes were absolutely necessary, as you can tell. We were really enjoying having such a great conversation. There was another hour of conversation that was off camera before we ever even started rolling. So we were so glad that we were able to get such great wisdom from such a great player. And as I said earlier, a great human being, just somebody that I really, really enjoy. The whole concept of balance, there's so much more to that with life than just drumming. And I think that's something that we've all struggled with through COVID, and through all of the different things that have gone on in our world for so many years now. I joked earlier that it had been 900 years since last season. It feels like that to so many of us, I think. And that balance is exactly the thing that we need to try to maintain. I just can't stress that enough. And I was really glad that Nate shared that particular piece of wisdom with us. I thought that was a really big takeaway. For me personally, another one was that you've got to still move to the city, to the music world, to where it's all going on. I live right here in Encino, California, in LA, and I came here after Nashville. And the reason was I wanted to be where the music was happening. What he said about running into somebody at Starbucks, it's incredibly true, incredibly so. In fact, next weekend, I'm starting a project with someone that I met because I lived here. Without it, that particular piece of work would never have happened. So thank you to Nate for the first part of this interview. Next week, we'll be back with part 2. But for now, let's take a look at the comments over here and see who's saying what. We've had a whole lot of people chiming in. I'm really glad you're all here. Let's see what we got here. All right, we're in Encino. Toby Simmons, how you doing, Toby? It's really, really good to have you back with us this year. Thank you. Dan, hello. Yeah, shout out to Gerald Hayward. No kidding. James Brantley in Purvis, Mississippi. Love it, man. Thanks for being here. Kendall, how you doing, man? Doesn't feel like 900 years to you, huh? Yeah, that's an interesting thing, isn't it? 900 years or 900 milliseconds. It's kind of both simultaneously to me for some reason. It's kind of been crazy how time, talk about time being flexible. I'm pretty sure that Einstein was right. David Stanek, hey, we gave you a shout out in the middle of the interview. How about that? Thanks for chiming in from Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's pretty awesome. Charles Anderson, welcome in, my friend from South Africa. Okay, I have to ask. Oh yeah, the custom look on Nate's rolling. We actually talked about that off camera. He really loved the fact that it matches that pearl kit that he's got sitting there. Truly something that it looks great together. You should see it up close and in personal. Okay, Charles, I have a question. Polokwane? How'd I do? Polokwane, South Africa? Yeah? Polokwane? That can't be right. It's got to be Polokwane, right? It has to be. Oh, man, that's funny. Who else is with us? Jerry Montgomery. That's my sister. Hey, Jerry. Thanks for chiming in. It's good to see you. Greg Cherry, north of Memphis, Tennessee. I'm, kind of from that area. Greg, where are you, man? Jack Tatil, Sherman Oaks, just down the road. Very nice. Thanks for stopping by. Barry Halevi. You're in what? Pennsylvania, Connecticut, somewhere up there, it seems. I seem to recall that. Michael Reschke, Navarre, Florida. Thanks for coming back for season 2, Michael. It's good to see you here, man. And next, of course, the next few days, we're going to have a lot of people that watch this and find it on social media. And we're hoping to get the Groove Diner channel up and running very, very quickly so that you guys can see it. There's another sister of mine. Hey, Susan. Thanks for chiming in. Keith Tenenbaum. He's just over the street, too. He's one of my Friday buds. I miss you, man. Justin, greetings from the East Coast. Oh, I'm so glad that you enjoyed the interview, man. We had a really, really obviously great time doing the interview, and I can't wait for you guys to see the next one. It's going to be an awful lot of fun. So now I'm going to remind you guys that we had some other segments in the past. We're going to bring one of them back tonight for the first time this season. Of course, that was a dumb thing to say. It's the first episode, duh. But we're going to bring one back from last year, and it's called Buddy's Beats. That's right. That's what I used to look like. That's right. I played Danny Zuko in Grease. That's right. Been a long time ago. Oh, man. Hey, Graham Stevenson, thanks for coming in. You're in Australia, right? Our audience is worldwide, and I love that. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Tonight's Buddy's Beats is about Howard Hessman. Who's Howard Hessman? Howard Hessman just passed away this week. And why am I bringing him up? Because he played Dr. Johnny Fever in WKRP in Cincinnati. One of my favorite shows. I love old TV, 60s, 70s television. I love it. And part of that, I think, is because of growing up and watching WKRP with my father, and really enjoying the way that they handled his character on that show. He was an iconic DJ, which was such a cool thing to me as a little kid. So he brought an awful lot of joy to me. He also guest starred on the Bob Newhart show, the one from the 70s, not the one from the 80s. As he had a recurring character on there that I just thought was hysterical. And then fast forward to a little later in the 80s, and he was on Head of the Class. He was the teacher on Head of the Class who made the nerds and outcasts feel like they belonged. And I have never forgotten the lessons learned during that particular show, and how much I loved seeing the nerds and outcasts understand each other and find their people. So thank you to Mr. Hessman for everything that he did and for everything that he was to us back in the day. We got a couple more comments here. Polaquini, thanks, Charles. I appreciate that. It's a what? A Satho word meaning save place. Oh, okay. Satho, is that a tribe? I don't know. That's pretty cool. Keith, what did he do? He also played Ed in Ruben and Ed, which is the weirdest movie I've ever seen in my life. See, I've not even seen that. I've got to check that out now. That should be pretty cool, man. Kendall, I have a really weird question. Cleaning products and protocols, plus smoke in there with them. So you're talking about cleaning products and protocols for COVID, or for your drums, or what? I mentioned at the beginning that we took great care to make sure that COVID protocols were followed for the interviews that were in person, because we really wanted to do them in person, and everyone involved in the show is vaccinated. We were masked right up until we were 6 feet apart to do the interview. I don't know if you noticed, but we were sitting 6 feet apart, more than that actually. So that's the answer to that. Kendall, oh, the drums. Okay, well, I will tell you that what I use, I wish I could get it. DW has a cleaning cloth that is microfiber essentially, but it's a little more grabby than most microfiber. And I use that to clean the shell. Never put anything like Windex on your shell. Never put anything like Windex on your chrome. If you really, really want to get clean, take the heads off, take the hardware off the shell, and use car wax. That'll help with the smoke for sure. If you get car wax and dig it into the shell, I think you'll be really amazed at what you can do with that. The chrome will do the same thing, by the way. You can chrome it, but don't do it with it on the shell. You need to take it off the shell. Cymbals, I use one thing and one thing only. I use groove juice to clean cymbals. I don't clean cymbals particularly often. It's not something I do regularly, but when I do, I use groove juice. And there's actually a little trick that I just recently learned. I'm gonna go this far. So here we go. So let's say that the Peisty logo here, let's say I don't want that to come off with the groove juice. Well, what you can do is take electrical tape and cover the Peisty itself so that you're not removing the logo when you spray the groove juice on. Groove juice is a very different kind of cleaner. You spray it on, you leave it on for a minute, and you rinse it off, and that's it. So don't try to do more than that or you'll ruin your cymbal finish. Definitely a good question, though. That'll help you with the smoke. That'll help you with making your cymbals all nice and shiny and pretty, too, okay? Oh, thanks, Odie. It's good to see you, man. He's down in San Diego. Good to see you here. So I think that just about wraps us up for tonight. And thank you so much for coming and spending more time with us again this year. We look forward to seeing you next week. We're going to bring back other segments, things from the past that maybe you will be surprised by. It's going to be a lot more drumming this year. We're going to be doing some playing this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have in-person interviews live here in the studio. We're going to bring in my dear friend Emma Green, who's a physical therapist, to talk to us about keeping our bodies together for drumming, because it's so challenging to do that. We're getting so many comments over here now. Let's see what we get here. Charles, I was just saying that I use Groove Juice. It's the only thing that I have found that does what I want to do with cymbals. It doesn't require polishing. If you can get Groove Juice, follow the directions exactly. And I think you'll be very, very pleased with how it works. The background, thank you. We actually spent quite a bit of time on this, as you can probably tell, and renovated the whole studio space. This is some acoustic diffusion material that comes in little sheets, and it was a really fun thing to put up on the wall. Over here we've got some wood grain stuff to make it really, really beautiful. And the truth is, the curve, I don't know if you can see that on camera or not, but the curve with the purple, that was an idea I got from watching Frasier. Again, I like old TV shows. And Frasier had this curved wall in his apartment that I just loved. So that's where the idea for the curves came from. And I had a lot of help to do it, I'll tell you that. And on that note, I want to thank Eli Jarrah, who's in the room with me here. He's producing and directing this year and taking that off my plate, which is really great. Allows me to think mostly about the camera and being able to talk to you guys. So thanks to Eli for that, and to Brian Oshap for helping with the renovations here, to say the very least. He helped quite a lot. I hope you guys like the new logo. I see Toby. Thank you for saying that. Thank you so much. We're really happy to be back for this season. So now with that, we'll see you next week. All right. Enjoy your time. Be safe. Take care of everybody.